Yes, Nance. Good to have you here, bro. Again, I really appreciate you being willing to partake in this conversation. Obviously, when I shared the project with you, Streets versus the Kingdom, and I said, obviously, I wanted to have guys that I've grown up with, guys that I've known in my journey who have lived that street life, have been saved by Christ and have come out of it. One of the key things I obviously wanted to do was have these discussions where we can get into it. And so obviously this chapter we're looking at women for my pleasure versus women God's image bearers. But before we, I guess, get into it, some of the questions I have for you, it'd be good just to hear, again, your background, where you grew up, what was life like?
Yeah, no, pleasure, Mo. You know, as I call you my guy at the top. So when you called me, I was like, I've got to do this, you know? Yes. But yeah, it's a super solid project. I think something that's needed, something that has to be addressed. So for me, yeah, basically grew up in Clapham/Brixton Hill, Clapham Park Estate. It's a big estate that spans from the bottom of Clapham and then runs all the way up to sort of Brixton Hill. So yeah, that was me, early years. The estate's been knocked down now, actually. So it's in the process of being, you know, that gentrification is happening. So yeah. So yeah, those were my early years. It was rough there, but that was all we knew. So it didn't seem like anything else. Everyone I knew grew up in similar places, whether it be Stockwell, Brixton, Angeltown, Mitesfield, wherever. Everyone I went to school with, same sort of stuff. So you never felt out of place or any sense of other, really. So that was us growing up. Good fun. And then when I got to about 15, moved to Thornton Heath. So yeah, a lot of people did that move where, you know, parents trying to climb the ladder, get you out of the ends. You know, especially when you're getting to those crucial ages. So ended up moving out to Thornton Heath and then still stayed at my same secondary school. So that didn't change too much. But a lot of my friends that also lived in Stockwell, Brixton, ended up moving over to Thornton Heath, Mitcham, Norbury. So it was everyone kind of doing that move at the same time. So yeah, it just made sense for us.
Nice. And I guess related to this particular topic, so women for my pleasure versus women God's image bearers, what is it that resonated for you? Because obviously when I guess initially was looking, okay, who can I get to have this conversation with? I wanted my wife to do it, but she wasn't on it. But then when I spoke to you, you said, you know what, I want to do this particular topic. What resonated with you, bro? Do
you know what it is? I think with this, all the topics, you know, whether it be violence, money, those are all the, you know, pertinent things that need to be addressed anyway and would get done. But I think this is one of the ones that could have easily slipped by. When I think back to us and how we grew up and what the mentality was, I was like, you know, and especially for me, when it came to Christ, that was probably like one of the biggest, because my wife, who was my girlfriend, is my wife now. We both started going to church together. And we were thinking about marriage, and we weren't thinking about marriage at that point. She was thinking about marriage. And I was like, I'll tag along. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, didn't really have any thought or understanding about what any of it really meant. But then when I came to Christ and the more I got to understand the truth, the more apparent it became how warped the mindset was growing up in and around us. So whether it's you're completely deep in and whatever, or whether you're just growing up on the ends like everyone else, because what everyone forgets is it's not just the, you know, doing the crazy bank robberies or whatever. It's just growing up in and around the ends, and everyone kind of carries that mentality. And so I was like, you know what, this is one that I can actually address, because there are some real pertinent points that need to be touched on in terms of how we view women growing up.
No, and you're right. I think it's not just, to your point, people that are on the road, on the streets, knee deep, but actually just growing up in that culture, in that environment, it does create certain value systems in terms of the way we look at women. So I guess just getting into that, like when you were on the road, when you were on the streets, when you were on the ends, for instance, like how would you say you saw women at that time? So this is before Christ. How did you see
yeah,
women,
yeah.
and how did the man them as well? How did they see women?
Yeah.
Because that plays a part as well.
Yeah. So like I said, it's for all of us growing up, I don't even know what age it kind of kicks in. I can't even, it's young. But there quickly becomes this thing of being a man means you can get girls, and not only get girls, but at some point as you get a bit older, then it's like, okay, how many girls can you sleep with?
Yeah.
How many girls can you get, and how many girls can you tell everyone that you've slept with? And you slept with this one, that one. Yeah. And even to the point where when you're growing up, you're laughing at who's a virgin at some point. So now there's even a pressure to go out there and, obviously with what the truth we know now, to fornicate, outside of marriage. So, but this is so normal. It's not something of, like I said, this is not something that's reserved for those who are in knee deep in the streets doing all this. This is just an ends type of culture, mentality type thing. Yeah. So
probably even bigger than the ends as well.
Yeah, true.
To some extent,
wider
it's just
society.
Wider society.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think inside of that, it then becomes anyone that's kind of, I'm sort of like a 90s baby. So anyone that's around the same sort of age will remember being out with the man them, and if a girl walks by trying to move to a girl, if a man feels embarrassed, then shouting to, oh, your butters anyway, or X, Y, Z, or some guys would even go as far as fly kicking or throwing something, that sort of thing. Yeah. So, and everyone's standing around. Maybe you might think that's the, but because nobody says anything, these things are just passed off as sort of normal. It's just like, this is what it is.
Yeah. And I know many people obviously listening will say, do you know what? Same mindset. I get it. I grew up in the 90s. I know exactly what that's like. So I guess for you, Nana, how did that change come about? Because obviously now coming to the truth, we recognize that actually we didn't have a right perspective and understanding on who women actually were. And so coming to Christ, you recognize actually women are made in God's image. So what brought about that change for you? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I think like my wife is pivotal to all of that, because as I said, she was my girlfriend at the time, and neither of us were saved around that time as well. And it's in the whole sort of even connection to the streets and everything like that is, I would have never have seen myself as like knee deep, but you're always connected. Whether you know everyone, you know what's going on, everyone's around you, X, Y, Z, and you're not that guy that wants to go maybe as far as maybe doing some of the other madnesses that are going on. Sure. But then but the truth is, you're taking risks daily that could land you in prison, and you're kind of nonchalant to that fact as well, to be honest. So in a way, to wider society, you probably would be seen as like some, but in where we're from,
at, you're like, do you know what? I'm not even at the top level yet.
This is just
I'm
normal
still
life.
Yeah.
But so when I met my wife, then girlfriend, I think she sort of went to a wedding, came back one day and said, "Oh yeah, I really want to get married," sort of thing. And I was like, okay. I didn't really think anything of it. She was like, let's start going to church. And my recollection of what church was and everything else is just long, drawn out, boring. Sure. So I said, listen, we kept going back and forth, and I said, all right, listen, I'll go. But it has to be no longer than an hour. Yeah. That was one of my underlying, because you know what I mean? I'd done some serious hours.
Nigerian church, bro.
Honestly. So, but anyway, we stepped in.
Yeah.
And this is the church I'm still at to this day, King's Church, London. And we walked in and they were doing a hashtag trending now.
Sure.
So it was like reflecting what's going on in society, and they were talking about marriage. And pastor at the time, Steve, and his wife Deb were on the stage, and they were answering questions about marriage, about sex. And I was like, I've never been to church where they've been this open and talking about current things like this. So it really drew me in. Yeah. And then I was looking around and I'm seeing couples holding hands, older couples, things like that. And I've never seen any of that sort of behaviour in that sort of sense. So to me, it was just like, whoa, okay, this is different. But then as I came to understand God's truth a lot more and understand what the word says, I was like, we're looking at this. I've been looking at this all wrong.
Sure.
Like my understanding of what of what women like are and who they are and how and my interactions with them is completely wrong.
Off, yeah.
So and then I was like, okay, cool. So as you come to know the truth more, and as the Spirit enters the heart, you become more and more convicted. So I was convicted, and I think there was one passage particularly that says,
share. Let me hear, yeah.
It's Matthew 5, verse 26. And it says, "But now I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman and wants to possess her is guilty of committing adultery with her in his heart." And I was like, oof.
Yeah.
Because
that's hard hitting.
Yeah, big time. Because again, keeping it like all the way 100.
Yeah.
You could be with the guys, a woman could walk by, and all you're doing is making comments all the time, and it's just normal.
Yeah.
So now I'm at this place where the Lord is in my heart, and I'm remembering this specific passage every time, and I could be with childhood friends, and they're saying da-da-da, and I'm thinking, man, like,
I can't think that way anymore.
And it was
been changed.
It was but the Lord made that obviously easier. So it's not as just I was trying to do it in my own strength. It was like, okay, cool. This is what God's word says. So this is what I need to live type thing. And then even at that point, you start to just view things differently anyway, because then you start thinking, I've got sisters. So you start thinking to yourself, well, then would I want somebody looking at my sisters that way? And then now to the point where I've got daughters. So you start thinking the same, so it goes all the way. So then it becomes a lot easier, and it becomes a lot more real in terms of living that out. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's a good point, because I remember when I had, so we've got, Simity, I've got 2 daughters. My eldest is a girl, and I remember when we found out that we're going to have a girl, I thought we were going to have a boy, but when I found out we're having a girl, it literally changed everything for me. I remember thinking, oh snap, I'm having a girl. I saw the scan, and I remember going back from, I think we were Denmark Hill, going back home, and I started looking at every woman. I was like, my days. So you started off this little on a scan, as it were, and you grew to become this woman. And I think to your point, that passage about like how we look at women, how we view them, are we looking at them like a piece of meat versus actually someone that's been made in God's image, has value, worth inherently. It clearly I got that when I was thinking about my daughter, but then when I started looking at other women, I thought, oh snap, that's how I should be looking at them.
Literally.
Also. It's spot on. And I guess, is there anything else that stood out for you? Any passages, anything that you might want to share?
There was one specifically, again, where in the beginning, again, there's no point, like, it was difficult. Because you've been living life that one way your whole way. Like the whole time you've been on this earth.
That's right.
So then at this point, all of a sudden, you need to almost like rewire your brain. And even the people around you, just because you're in this place now. Not necessarily dropped out everyone that you've grown up with. So, and like I said, this is not a case of even just being, the wrong friends, or this is cousins, people that you can,
close
that you're around all the time. And this is just generally seen as normal. So I was like, well, for me, growing in my faith, I was like, okay, cool. Galatians 5, and it says, chapter 26 says, verse 26 says, 16. What I say is this: let the Spirit direct your lives, and you will not satisfy the desires of the human nature. So then I was like, God, like I really need you on this one, because like everywhere I go, everywhere you look, it's just like, this is difficult trying to do this on my own. So it was more like, all right, Father, like take over my heart, take over my mind, and help me to view, the women on this earth and around me as my sisters, as as understand them as someone's daughter, someone's child, that sort of thing. And it helped, like, to no end. Do you know what I mean?
That's big. And I can't deny, I'm perfect. Do you know what I mean? Married, and in fact, even being married, even on top of that, it's like you're having to your point, come to God and say, you know what? I need your help. I need your Spirit, like you said, to be able to look at women and view them in the way God does. So fully appreciate the honesty, the vulnerability there, bro. I guess before we close out, is there anything else you want to share? Anything, any comments, any words of wisdom? But if not, we can close out. But let me leave the last word to you. The
last thing I was just gonna is if anything, is just to young men, boys, teenagers out there, is don't be afraid to go against the grain. You know, so if at those, especially when you're at young, impressionable ages, like everyone you're around, that's who you seek your validation from.
Yeah.
But wrong is wrong, and when something happens, especially towards the opposite sex, and you know it's wrong, but you're thinking, what's everybody else's reaction before you might say or do something? At that point, if you feel that conviction in your heart, then stand on it, because there will come a time where you'll look back and you'll think to yourself, why didn't I say anything?
Yeah.
And I've been in that predicament so many times, and looked back and thought, yeah, but that wasn't even all right. Like, why did we X, Y, Z, you know? And then you come to find, you might speak to other people that were around the day and think, yeah, you know what, he was moving mad.
Yeah.
Like, but nobody said anything, stood up. You know?
Yeah.
And that prevents, because again, some of these things that happen, whether you see them as small, shouting something out to a girl walking by or whatever, you don't know what that does to that young lady or woman.
That's right.
When she goes home, or how she feels because you've objectified her, or she's insecure about something that you then mention at that point. Yeah. So, I would just say, listen, yes, like, if there's a time, like, be bold enough. And when you have that conviction in your heart, like, call them out, call your guys out for it, and just say, listen, come on, man, X, Y, Z. Yeah. And then and from going forward, we get to start to change behaviours.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. And that's what we're all about, and that's what we're hoping for and praying for. So no, bro, Nana, thank you so much, man. Thank you for the honesty. Thank you for what you shared. Love it.